Next up, it was news to almost everyone when the former head of the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association and longtime BPD officer Patrick Rose Sr. was arrested and charged with rape and indecent assault last summer. But according to a recent report from the Boston Globe's Andrew Ryan, the police department had known for decades that Rose had been accused of such behavior. The investigation found that, quote, the BPD in 1995 filed a criminal complaint against him for sexual assault on a 12-year-old, and even after the complaint was dropped, wrote the Globe, proceeded with an internal investigation that concluded that he likely committed a crime. Despite that finding, Rose kept his badge, remaining on patrol for another 21 years and rose to power in the union that represents patrol officers. And today, the Globe reported state child welfare investigators also believed in '95 that there was evidence Rose had abused the child. Since then, Rose allegedly continued to abuse young kids, including, the Globe reported, the daughter of the boy he was accused of molesting in the 1995 case. He now faces more than 30 charges of sexual abuse of 6 different victims who ranged from 7 to 16 years old at the time, all of which he has denied. Since October, the Globe has been requesting the disgraced union leader's internal affairs file, but the BPD has repeatedly refused. And even after the state's supervisor of public records argued the city had no basis to withhold them, former Mayor Marty Walsh's administration refused to hand them over. But today, his successor, acting Mayor Kim Janey, announced she's taking a different approach.
As a mother and as a grandmother, I was heartbroken and angry to learn that nothing was done to keep Mr. Rose away from children or to terminate him, for that matter, after serious charges were found to be credible by a BPD internal affairs probe. Transparency cannot wait any longer. I have ordered the release of these redacted internal affairs files as soon as possible.
The Boston City Council has also pledged to, quote, use every tool available to ensure transparency and create safeguards to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Councilor Lydia Edwards joins me now. Councilor, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for this opportunity.
You know, as horrible as this Patrick Rose thing is, and I think it's one of the worst things I've ever heard, how do we know that there aren't 20 or 100 Patrick Roses who the Globe has not uncovered, who've been protected by the police department for years?
We don't. That's the problem. And that's the system that we're fighting against. It's a systemic problem that someone can get away with this, continue and actually grow in leadership. And that ultimately, again, we see a failure of the Boston Police Department to police its own. This is a systemic issue, and that's why we have to attack it the way we are doing right now, but also need to do a full-on investigation of every single allegation.
You know, systemic is right. You know, transparency seems to be an alien concept when it comes to the Boston Police Department. You know, very recently, our commissioner for a day, Dennis White, who was accused of domestic violence, domestic abuse 20 plus years ago. There's an internal affairs report there as well. The Globe has requested it. The city denied the request. And the state supervisor or overseer of records, whatever her job is, says there was no reason, no justifiable reason for the city to withhold it. Yet again, I asked Kim Janey about this the other day. She said she'd look at the records. She did not commit to release that. So it goes on and on. No?
It goes on and on until people are actually held accountable. If you're not actually punished, or if there aren't real deadlines set to and real commitments actually put on the table, and there are no consequences, there's absolutely no reason. If I'm sitting there not wanting these records to go out, I have no real reason to rush. I have no real reason to actually comply with any of these requests. There's no consequences.
You know, I'm just talking to you. I'm working myself into a frenzy. I hope I get this guy's name right. I think it's Sergeant McHale. In fact, it is Clifton McHale. I'm thinking about another one. We learned recently this was a guy who was bragging about driving his vehicle into some protesters. He's put on administrative leave, I believe. During that time, we find out he had sexually assaulted an intoxicated woman while he's in uniform in his police car. He gets a year of unpaid suspension. Do you have any idea if he's still on leave? Is he back on the force? Has he been dismissed? What's going on with him?
I won't really be satisfied until he's in jail. But the fact is, no, I don't know. And it's that, again, that kind of cloak of I don't know, it's just a cloak of secrecy that we have to end. It's a systemic problem. We've seen it with the Catholic Church, we've seen it with other institutions, and we need to attack it full on. You start with the negotiations and looking at the union contract. You start with how you recruit people. And honestly, you start with firing people and holding them accountable. And that's the issue. It's not that there's a perfect institution out there that doesn't have bad apples. It's that you need to be able to attack systemic problems before they become generational and happen over decades. This is our issue. It's embarrassing. As an elected official, I feel that this is now on my shoulders. I've inherited this, and part of my leadership needs to really be about holding it accountable. I'm not going to kick the can. I cannot give that to the next class of folks, of city councilors to come in. We need to be bold at this time. We need to be holding people accountable. We need to talk about the police budget. We need to talk about how we really end this. I appreciate the ASAP and the call to get things done as soon as possible. That happened years ago. It needs to happen now. We need a deadline, and people need to be fired if they don't meet that deadline.
So why should your constituents feel safe knowing they're being protected by someone who they actually might need protection from?
It's not even the individual. It's the fact that the system can so fail us all and for generations. Again, there is no perfect department in this world. There are bad apples. But when you fail to actually address the issues, it is a sense of, it's a lack of moral compass. It's a lack of true belief in protecting people. It's a shame. It's I don't even know how to say this as an elected official. I feel like I am taking on more of this emotional than the Boston Patrolmen's Association is. I haven't heard a peep from them. I haven't heard a peep from a lot of individuals who absolutely should be coming forward and saying this was all part of our doing, and it slipped through all of our hands.
By the way, we asked for a comment as well from the union. We've heard absolutely nothing. Final question for you. You've mentioned accountability a bunch of times in this discussion. Are you confident that the higher-ups who basically covered up for this guy for 2 decades, let him be out on the street, and we learned in the Globe in many cases attending to issues, potential crimes involving young kids, are you convinced the higher-ups who allowed this to happen will ultimately be held accountable? And I have like 30 seconds.
I am convinced if we have the leadership and we push not only an OPAT, but we continue to shine sunlight where we need to. We need to embarrass them, and we need to constantly pull them forward and really talk about their retirement, their pension, and honestly go as far back as we need to and make sure everyone is appropriately punished. This is the time now to demonstrate to the people of Boston that we can rise to the occasion and we can fix this.
Couldn't agree more. Councilor Lydia Edwards, I really appreciate your time. Good luck with your work.
Thank you very much.